Yeah. Right, okay, so we've got our camera trap all ready to go, and we've got a lovely volunteer to come and help. And we've also got this ideal place we can see where the vegetation's all been rubbed away. We know that there's definitely something going up and down there, whether or not it's dogs or otters, but I can guarantee that there would have been an otter up there at some point, because the habitat's ideal. And we've got otter records just about half a mile down the road and from here, and we've got otter records down at Roden village itself, where there's actually a population of otters that have been breeding. So those otters could quite easily come up to this territory. They quite often go along a 50-kilometre stretch of river, so there could be otters all over the place. There could just be otters kind of walking or swimming past each other constantly. But that's where the camera trap comes in useful. So if you wanted to come and walk very carefully down here, and otters don't care if they're getting out of the water somewhere that's particularly precarious to humans. In fact, they're going to look for somewhere that's more and more difficult for humans or anybody else anything else to get down to disturb. And this is why there's a slight danger of slipping into the brook, but I'm sure we should be okay. And what you can do is put that as low down the tree as possible.
Okay, so near the floor. Near the floor.
So I'd say about that height should be good. You may have to pass one side round to me, and then I'll see if that fits.
About there?
Yeah, that should be ideal.
Okay.
And then this is a slightly bigger tree than I normally go for. So you can never plan where a mammal's going to come out, but we can increase the possibilities of getting an otter by just making sure it's pointing right down on the slide. Eliza's actually stood just on the top of the slide there, so if anything comes through, there's no need to even bait, because otters are naturally inquisitive. If they've used a slide and there's any sign of anything else coming by, if it's been a dog or anything else that's left prints or scents, the otter will come by and investigate. So again, we should hopefully get that on camera. What I'd also be tempted to do if I was due to be leaving it here overnight is you can just take anything like this, just a bit of grass, and pretty much just shove it in all around there, just to make sure it's a bit more camouflage. And unless people are looking for the camera, they tend to not really notice these. But then, I've told you I have a few near misses, and I'm particularly paranoid about getting them stolen. What I'd also do is I'm going to be really kind and ask Eliza to also just flatten some of the grass down there.
Yeah.
So I've mentioned before that the last thing you want as well is something else triggering the camera trap. And there's a lot of leaves, there's potentially grass blowing around if the wind picks up. That'll all set the camera trap off, and you potentially have hours of footage of cameras, bits like leaves and grass blowing in front of the camera. Just make sure Eliza doesn't disappear down the bank at this point.
Bye.
I don't always get people to do my dirty work for me. And once you've got it set up on the tree, you can see it's quite simple. We've got a screen, so what we can do is do a few seconds of recording by turning it to on, which is just a case of flicking it to the highest position on there. Then turn it off again after about 30 seconds and just checking to make sure that it's being positioned okay. But you can generally get a good rule for me to suggest. It's something that I've started doing lately is by putting something on top. So I know that's not exactly straight, but it gives you a general idea, and what you can do is just lie something across, and you can see wherever the stick's pointing, that's going to be the direction that the camera's pointing in. So rather than spend time attempting to set it up perfectly and then keep going back to check, because you can also get it set up perfectly, then go to close it and then suddenly it falls because something behind has come loose or something, and then you have to start the whole process again. So yeah, I'd recommend just using this straight stick or something. Just try and point it as far down as possible. It's all set to go. We've set it to record for 10 seconds as I mentioned, and it's on high sensitivity, so even something like a mouse or a vole could trigger it. And then, as I say, it's just as simple as switching it to on, as I'm doing as a demonstration now, and then hopefully you can see a red light flashing there. That red light is the indicator light to show that the mechanism started to work, and that as soon as that's finished, that should then be triggered by any kind of movements in front of the camera. So if everybody waves now, hopefully you should now be triggering the camera. And you all said that you were going to be happy on television, so when this goes on Midlands Today next month, unless we get something particularly rare from this camera trap, Midlands Day won't have any interest, but they are quite interested in seeing some of the rarer otter behaviour, so there's always a chance that we could get some of the footage on Spring Watch or Midlands Day.
The time that these are set up, Stuart. I mean, what sort of periods do you leave them out for before you think it's safe to come back and think I'm going to have something I can see?
It's very tempting just to set it up and go back and check the following morning to see what's happened overnight. But of course, we're leaving human scent everywhere that we're putting these cameras out. So we try and leave it for at least a week.
So they would know if you'd been around recently. They'd pick that up.
Yeah. I mean, a badger's sense of smell is much greater than ours. So they can smell where we walk through, even along one of those trails, and they'll avoid those trails if we've been along them. But about 2 or 3 days, and your scent dissipates, and we start to find that they start behaving naturally again.
We saw from some of that footage there, placing the camera isn't always necessarily the most convenient place for you.
It's never in a convenient place, but this is one of the great things about taking groups out, is that it's never on public footpaths, because of course these are 200 quid bits of equipment. We can't just put them out in the middle of a public space, so we're literally getting as far off track as possible, and we're following those mammal trails that are quite
okay. And you were saying that they're quite expensive bits of equipment, but I do believe you can get sort of cheaper ones that any member of the public, if they're interested in doing so, can put in perhaps their own gardens, for example.
Yes, the first model I bought, I think, was about £250 or so. The same model now is down to less than 100, so the prices have been dropping. And they're even available in quite a few supermarkets now for about £60 or £75. I mean, they're not quite as good quality, so you're not going to get absolute award-winning quality footage, but it's enough just to get a record, and that's obviously what my aim is running Shropshire Mammal Group.
And presumably, I mean, we just touched on badgers just then, but presumably you pick up other species when you're monitoring these areas, these walkthroughs that the wildlife have been using.
Yes, well, this is again what I love about the camera trap, is that we'd often walk along a badger trail and we can tell straight away it's a badger trail because of the way it's worn. What we find is that badgers are actually forming like a highway for all the other wildlife to follow. So without having the camera trap, we'd never know what else was using it, but we found a badger trail previously with polecats, rabbits, hares, deer, all using the same trail. So it's almost like I say, like a little motorway through the woods.
Okay, fantastic! Wow. And is there any particular area of Shropshire you're focusing on, or is it the whole county? Just trying to get a broader picture of what's going on out there.
It was previously the whole of the county, but of course then last year we had this exciting revelation that we'd actually got pine martens that we considered to be extinct living in South Shropshire, and the only reason that's been made possible is thanks to the use of the camera traps, because we're leaving them out for weeks at a time. We'd never have any idea what's out there because it's so remote. I mean, you can't even get your car anywhere near it, so we're literally putting 5 or 6 camera traps into really remote sections.
I suppose that we see the wildlife photography on TV and these amazing fleeting moments of wonder and darting kingfishers and what have you. Of course, that's taken hours and hours of work, and you are capturing hours and hours of footage. So at some point, you or somebody sits down and wades through all this stuff.
I must admit, it was supposed to be a group effort, but it's actually quite addictive. So when you've got 500 clips and there's potentially a pine marten on there amongst those 500 clips, you start hiding the computer screen away just so you're the first one to see it. So I have been called a bit possessive over my camera trap footage, but it's that excitement. That's again, we're not only getting the records, but for public engagement. We take them to lots of events just to show people what they've got living on their doorstep. And Call Me a Church, which is in the local area, we put camera traps out last year and got evidence of badgers, but there was also this year they've gone out and bought their own camera traps, so it inspired them to get their own records, and they've got polecats living in the church grounds.
That's brilliant. Well, that's very, very interesting. Thank you very much indeed for telling us about that.